When Cyclone Studios produced Battlesport on the 3DO, many people thought they couldn't top themselves. Well, they're about to do just that with their latest game entitled Uprising.
Uprising is a new kind of game. It's a blend of action and strategy. The best kind of action you find in a game like Quake, the best kind of strategy that you find in a game like Warcraft or Command & Conquer. You're down on the field, you see your troops running by you, you see bombers overhead, you hear all the sound effects, it's like you are there. You play most of the game from the perspective of a high-tech tank called a Wraith, and jump into the perspective of citadel towers. These are like big gun towers that can defend your land. It's now online, and it's looking for anybody to attack. It's going to start kind of patrolling the skies, moving around. On the surface, it's an action game, you know, and you'll be driving around, and you'll see all these enemies, and you'll be shooting at them. But the real way to succeed at the game is by commanding all these other forces. Now, let me just take care of these guys. They're stupid enough to attack a tank. Not very smart. Finally, a game that wasn't you against 50 million other pieces. We really wanted you to feel that, you know, you were part of this allied force, and you're playing a big part in it, but, you know, you really have to use its entire resources, these bombers, these jets, these troops, these allied tanks, as part of your offense. Cyclone's a small company. We really need to put a lot of wood behind one arrowhead, so instead of doing a game for 3 different platforms and just really spreading our resources thin, we want to just pick the right one and just, you know, put all our efforts behind that. I mean, personally, for me, I just love, you know, making games, and I love the high-level concept of, you know, a game like, okay, we want this game to feel this way or that way. It's okay if I'm not involved in all the creative details. I just want to believe in the spirit of the game. And as we've gotten bigger, you know, we've been doing more games, and so, you know, we have one game in one genre that I really like and another game in a genre that I'm really crazy about, and so, you know, it's just a great time.
When the first World Series baseball game came out for the Saturn, it was one of the greatest baseball games ever. And then the next year, it got even better than that. Now, World Series Baseball 98 uses 3D polygons instead of 2D sprites. Let's see how it's changed the game.
What we can see in the background here is World Series Baseball 98. We've gone with a polygonal version, keeping the same engine but upgrading it to polygon characters. I think the sprite base had a nice, clean, polished look to it and worked really well. What we wanted to do is continue the realism, the authenticity of the sport.
What do polygons offer that sprites can't?
Motion capture and more realistic movement. By shortstop and throwing the ball to first stop and the second baseman's in the way, he's going to duck.
Jumping up to catch the ball.
Jumping up to catch the ball, the sliding, the banging the bat on the ground when they strike out, the kick in the dirt, facial expressions.
What about gameplay enhancements? What's different with it that way?
Gameplay has stayed pretty much the same, except we've upgraded a little bit and made it more realistic as far as the pitching style isn't just any pitcher can do every style of pitcher. It's more based on what the pitcher really has in his arsenal. You're going to get the true fastball from Randy Johnson. You're going to get Nomo's outrageous swing and wind-up. So it's more realistic all around.
More simulation kind of.
Right. And I think some people like the arcadiness, and that's still in there. We didn't completely break away from that, but we've just upgraded to more of an authentic lineup, which is pretty much our overall theme. Initially, people were like, well, you know, it doesn't look necessarily as clean. It looks really cool, and I think it looks great. It's just, it's a difference, and it takes a little while adjusting to it. But overall, once you play it, it's like, wow, this is really cool. This is realistic. This is true baseball.
EP talked to Ken Lobb of Nintendo about James Bond's newest adventure, GoldenEye, for the Nintendo 64, developed by Rare.
Charming Tellerico.
You know, being a villain is a very competitive business these days.
You know, I was bummed because the guys got to meet the Bond girls.
I was invited to come. I love to play Nintendo, and I love this game.
We're able to give players a really lifelike scenario. The enemies look like real people. The environment that you play in is an actual blueprint from the movie GoldenEye 007. And in essence, you're there. You are James Bond.
You play the game a lot and you watch the movie, it's like, been in that room, seen that light switch. You know, this texture is taken right from the movie, for example. I mean, and I went to an arcade show in Japan, and I met Tim and Chris Stamper along with Mr. Takeda, was the guy who headed up the development of the Nintendo 64. And after the show, we went to NCL, and Mr. Takeda, being very technical, had already been to Rare, and he knew that this was going on, but he hadn't seen it, you know, actually in that state of a complete level. I found through white paper testing that a lot of the people were failing on the earlier missions, not just because the missions were hard, but because they were having trouble figuring out the mission objectives. On top of that, it wasn't just figuring out the mission objectives, they were trying to learn the lay of the land. You know, they were lost and trying to figure out mission objectives, and they're getting destroyed by these incredibly intelligent enemies. So it was pretty obvious to me, why don't we just remove some of the mission objectives from the earlier level? The other thing we did with GoldenEye, which is very important, is even when you earn the codes, you cannot use the codes in the regular game. What happens is, as soon as you go to the code screen and bring up a code, you get a special cheat level select. And you can only go back to the levels you've already beat. So you can't use codes to earn other codes, and you can't use codes to beat the game.
I think it will give you a pretty good feeling. I've tried the game, and I really got caught up in the suspense and the intrigue, and I really felt as though I was part of this world. I felt like I was making the movie again.
One of the things I pushed for early on was also the lean and duck. When you play these games, a lot of times what you're doing is finding a corner and then strafe right, strafe left, strafe right, strafe left. So I thought it would be kind of cool to be able to do what you always see in the movies, which is hide behind something and kind of, you know, pop out, bang, 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 and then be able to immediately pop back to exactly where you were standing. And then to be able to do this in a way that when you pop out, you're always aiming at the exact same point, as, you know, so it's something that's highly repeatable. You know, what they did with the AI of the enemies and the way that they hear and see you, what they've done with the idea of the cameras, you know, the idea of what am I doing with these missions that are somewhat obscure, and yet they tie in so well with the movie. You know, you really feel like you're James Bond when you play this game, and that's just because you're not just looking for a key, and you don't want to shoot everybody because people might hear you, or they might see you shooting someone and then go hit an alarm, and then the enemies come en masse, and you're in trouble.
Don't move a muscle. Our reviews are coming right